This is ContraZoom, where we go back and forth about film. I'm your host, Dakota Arsenault. It is now a week before the Oscars, and if you've been listening to the show for the past month, you have heard us break down all of the Best Picture contenders and even heard our Oscar draft last week with Thomas Stoneham Judge, Alex Watson, and Brody Cottenham. But it is now time to put some imaginary money where our real mouths are and predict who we think will win each category. Joining me today to potentially make a fool of himself is none other than Todd Pengelly, a writer for the publication For Real and a member of the Cascadia Film and Television Critics Association. Todd was last heard on episode 255, the 2023 VIFF wrap-up, where we spent 2 weeks saving seats for each other to cover the fest. Welcome back to the show, Todd. How are you?
I'm good. That's a really solid way of putting that. I'm good. I didn't realize we were putting our imaginary money here. I would have stopped picking American Fiction in every prediction, but yeah, I'm absolutely here.
You don't want to bet any Monopoly money on this, Todd?
American Fiction for best international feature. American Fiction for best. Yeah, no, we can put Monopoly money. I'm game.
Cool. I'm gonna own. Oh man, I can't even think of a property right now on Monopoly, the Monopoly board. I'm gonna own your boardwalk soon enough.
Okay.
Man, that joke fell real flat. I'm curious. You're a big Oscar guy, right? I feel like you are. Last year you joined the show. We did the predictions, and you came on for the wrap up. Would you say you're a big Oscar guy?
Yeah, I'm a big Oscar guy. Not in that I think it's funny. I think I listened to your Oscar nominations podcast, like when the nominations were announced, and I talked with Matthew about this, who you had on that episode, and Matthew often says it's like Whose Line, right, where the points, where everything's made up, the points don't matter. I think it's made up, and the points don't necessarily matter, but I'm an Oscar guy insofar as it almost does matter because so many people and so much of like Hollywood does care about it that it gives it like an inflated importance. The road to the Oscars is very silly, and I don't do all of the prophesizing that many people in the industry do, nor do I want to. I don't care to whatsoever. But it is telling to me that when we have an increasingly long campaign, which indicates to me that it is still of some importance whatsoever. And I think, I'm sure you get the same, that the amount of people I have reach out to me at the end of every year and then at the early months of every calendar year saying, what do I need to see for the Oscars? Indicates to me that even like the general movie going public, like my mom's or my friends or my friends' moms, do care at least somewhat about the Oscars in a way that people don't care about other award shows. Even like other movie award shows. I never have anyone reach out and be like, what do I have to see before the Golden Globes? Or what do I have to see before the Emmys are given?
Yeah.
But there is a kind of still regal importance in the Oscars that is entirely made up. But because of that, I try to give it some semblance of serious attention, even though if I were to nominate films or performances or the like, I would choose very few of every year's like cropped nominees.
I think that's a really excellent way of sort of wording how a lot of us feel about the Oscars. Like, we know it's all BS, a small group of people patting themselves on the back for a silly gold statue. But, there's also some real world consequences in the terms of, the types of movies that do well at the Oscars are also the types of movies to eventually get greenlit and get money behind them later. So when movies like, look at something like last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once gets made, it shows that there's an audience for that, where people want to see movies that feature diverse cast, movies that aren't completely in English, movies that sort of genre bend, all this sort of stuff that Everything Everywhere did. It shows that there's an audience for it. And then you look at this year with a movie like Oppenheimer at the top of the pack with the most nominations. It shows that some people still want, a nice adult drama that covers a serious topic matters that isn't just, the latest, CGI superhero movie, so to speak. So it does have some real world consequences as far as what the actual Oscars end up nominating in awarding as well, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think despite the box office success and the I don't know, the film community success, right? Like the letterbox success, for example, of like everything everywhere all at once. I think there would be a difference if that movie only had that success for the Daniels next project versus that success plus the Oscar pedigree.
Hmm.
Like they will have a blank check for whatever they make next. And that check will be a true blue blank check because it swept the Oscars. They would have a much larger budget and probably carte blanche to do what they want. Um, had it just been the kind of letterbox box office success of like people really turned out for this A24 film and people really liked it, but if it didn't have that kind of Oscar pedigree, I mean, they could make a movie for Universal now, right? They could go to any big studio, or any big studio would rather go to them.
Hmm.
Is I guess the better way of putting it because of that pedigree and because everyone's going to go see whatever their next movie is because everyone saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, including all of my friends' moms who would have definitely not seen it had it not been like an awards contender. So I think in that way, yeah, it's made up, but it's made up in the way that like money is made up, and still
Yes.
like we operate by money, and in a lot of ways, Hollywood operates, uh, lives and dies by the Oscars. There's a reason there's not an award show after the Oscars. It all leads up to it, and then we start over,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, and sort of continue your point there on the Daniels. Like it was announced last year that they had signed a deal with Universal, and some details actually only came out a couple days ago. It's a 5-year deal where they basically are being allowed to do what they want, and they have a date set for 2026 of what their next movie is going to be, and it sounds like they're going to have a massive budget. Everything Everywhere was an A24 movie. It was a huge success, but that movie did not cost a lot to make. And as spectacular as it was, they're about to get probably triple the budget that they had for that movie and for their next few, depending on what kind of a hit their follow-up is.
I promise I did not know that. That's incredible news. That I did not know that they had announced kind of their next project with
Hmm.
Universal, or at least like any of those details. But yeah, absolutely right. That's we're seeing the same thing with Bong Joon-ho, which a couple days ago it was announced that his new film starring Robert Pattinson is going to be delayed until next year.
Hmm.
But it's that same thing, right? Like the last time he made a movie, it finally garnered the attention of an increasingly international academy, and now he can do whatever he wants with whoever he wants, right? Like
Hmm.
not just um, Korean actors. And that's not to say that Robert Pattinson wouldn't have necessarily worked with him before. I think of all people, our Pat would have. But the point still stands that it's kind of like it does open doorways for a lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of animators, a lot of documentarians, a lot of international filmmakers increasingly, and for what that's worth, I think that's really a good thing. Like I think for all of the hell we give the Academy, it is beneficial, at least to the moderate to smaller filmmakers, or the ones that are largely ignored. I don't obviously actually Christopher Nolan doesn't need the acclaim of the Academy, seeing as how this year he's finally going to get it.
Hmm.
But he didn't need that to keep making his projects. But for someone uh, smaller like the Daniels, they do,
Yeah.
or at least it helps. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I care.
Same, yeah. Now, Oscar Death Race, as everyone knows, at this moment, I am now 2 movies away from completing this year's race. I've just got Napoleon and Io Capitano left, so I'm at 51 out of 53. Todd, do you know how many movies you've seen? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Um, yes, I do. Give me one second. I've seen all but I haven't seen most of the shorts. I've seen a handful of the shorts. I'm going to go to the theater to see kind of like them in bulk.
Nice.
Otherwise, I've seen, ooh, 70, 80% of the nominees. I tend not to watch the original song ones, and I just listen to the song
Yeah.
because most of the time you can watch the whole movie and then the song plays in the end credits and you're like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen all the major contenders, right? There are a handful of smaller documentaries I haven't seen, or Io Capitano, which is a difficult film to get your hands on, and the theater times haven't lined up for me. But yeah, otherwise I've seen all the major nominees.
Yeah, the songs it's interesting because like if you're death racing, in the community, we'd be like, no, you have to actually watch the movies. But if you're just like a regular Oscar fan, just listen to the songs. It's fine. Especially if they're end credit songs, it's fine. I think only 2 of the songs are actually, I think both Barbie songs are the only ones that are actually in the movies. The rest are end credit songs. So it's like, if you've seen Barbie, which I know you have, you understand, like, I'm just Ken sort of definitely fits in. You need to see the movie to really get what the song completely is. You can just listen to it. It's perfectly fine. But the rest of them you can easily just listen to, especially Flaming Hot. You have no reason to see that unless you want to have a good time. I mean, right. I took an edible and watched it, and that was an interesting experience.
Yeah. It's also... coincidentally, that's the best way to watch Naiad or God. Napoleon. But yeah, I know exactly. I was like, Barbie, those songs are super crucial. But I do think it's interesting that, the best original song the percentage is almost always like end credit music instead of something like, The Color Purple is a musical. Yes. It has songs in it. There are no songs nominated. Barbie is the only film this year where the songs actually like play a crucial part of the plot. So that's always such a strange category. I almost think it should be like nixed from the show, but I'm also never going to advocate for less categories. I'm always going to advocate for more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's funny. Jeff Ballmer from Classic Movies Live. Every year he does a great rant on the original song category, and he was on one of our Best Picture episodes. And he, of course, I goaded him into doing one. And yeah, I totally loved for the original song category to maybe have a stipulation that the song has to be in the movie and not just an end credit song, because I almost wonder if they did that, if the number of musicals produced per year would actually go up, because they'd be like, oh, well, we have a chance to get an Oscar now by having some more original songs. So that would definitely be something I'd be very curious to see, and how that would turn out in the sort of economic world of movie making. But as of right now, yeah, it's just frustrating having to watch a movie like Flaming Hot just to hear Diane Warren's 7th consecutive nomination for Best Original Song for a mediocre power ballad that she has.
Yeah, exactly. I also think that would give another opportunity for like animated films, because there are lots of animated films that are musicals and where the music is like super important, or like takes over the culture. I do think Encanto got an original song nomination a couple years ago, and I know that like Let It Go won the award, but like it is a real opportunity for animated films to finally not be in just the animated film category, which is such a pigeonholed category, as everybody, most notably Guillermo del Toro, has pointed out. So yeah, I would agree. I would say just make the rule it can't be playing over the credits, and I think you just instantly kind of fix that category.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. All right, well, let us get into our predictions. We're going to kind of be jumping around a lot, but you'll be able to follow along in the show notes. I'm going to list what our predictions are there as well. We are going to list both who we want to win and who we think will win. And then during the Oscar wrap-up podcast, I will share which one of us won all of the Monopoly money, I suppose.
Okay. Can I just stake all of my money on like one pick and then ignore the other like 40?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. All right. So we're going to start things off with Best Supporting Actress. And so the nominees are Emily Blunt in Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks in The Color Purple, America Ferrera in Barbie, Jodie Foster in Naiad, and Divine Joy Randolph in The Holdovers. So let's just alternate going back and forth who starts. Todd, how about you start and give us the honor of who you want to win and who you think will win this category?
Pretty boring. I think also a lot of people would agree with me here. My pick for both is Divine Joy Randolph. She is, I think, kind of heads and shoulders above the rest of these nominees. I don't like this list of 5 nominees. And Yeah, I just Divine Joy Randolph. I don't have a lot to say on that. I think she's going to win. I would pick her for my personal winner. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'm on the exact same page as you there. Divine Joy Randolph has been absolutely dominant this award season, winning literally everything. I don't know if she's lost yet in a category that she was nominated for. And it was, sorry, an award show she's been nominated for, because she's been so dominant. And it's a stark contrast, I think, compared to the supporting actors, which we're going to get to in a moment, where I agree with you. This is a pretty weak category. Rachel and I every year pick our own, if we were Academy members, what would our 5 nominees be, sort of thing, and we're working on that still, and it's going to come out before the Oscars come out. And yeah, I have very little overlap with this actual category. I think Randolph is the only one that I have in both, because it's just such a weak category, unfortunately. It's a real shame, because there were some truly fantastic supporting performances this year, and this crop isn't it. Randolph is it, but the rest of them are not.
Yeah, I do the same thing as you and Rachel. Actually, I pick like the same, like who I would nominate, and I'm looking at my list right now. I also have not finished that, but I have finished Best Supporting Actress, and yeah, Randolph is the only one of the 5 that I also have in my 5, and 2 of my 5 have like lots of question marks in parentheses next to them, because it's I don't know, it was just kind of like a weird year for Best Supporting Actress. There weren't a ton of amazing nominees, and none of them touched Randolph.
All right, then let us go to Best Supporting Actor, and we've got Sterling K. Brown in American Fiction, Robert De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling in Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things. So, like I said, the complete opposite category. This is, in my opinion, the single most stacked category at all of the Oscars. Sterling K. Brown is the one that I was kind of iffy on, only because I don't think he has enough to do in this movie. I think he's fantastic in American Fiction, but I just wish he had like maybe 1 or 2 more scenes to really drive home his importance to that film. I think that sort of speaks to my issues with the movie overall. But otherwise, you know, this is an absolutely stacked category, and I'm happy for all 5 of these nominees. My favorite, I think, is probably Ryan Gosling and Barbie. You know, it's a little bit cliche now to joke about how in a movie that's tackling feminism and what does Barbie mean to the world in the modern age and all this sort of stuff, in the single performance everyone wants to talk about is Ryan Gosling as Ken, because he's just so radiant in this film. And we talked about his song that he has in it, and that's a real big reason for me thinking that he's my favorite. That said, I think Robert Downey Jr. is going to be the winner here, but I would be a very happy boy if Ryan Gosling ended up winning. What about you?
Yeah, I've also picked Robert Downey Jr., and I'm in the same boat as you in that I think I like the Gosling performance the most of these 5 performances. But when I was doing like my pick, who I would vote for, I ended up like surprising myself and also picking Robert Downey Jr. there as well. And I think the reason is because so much of the time we have the makeup Oscar, and we're like, well, we should have given it to RDJ for this, or we should have given it to him for that. And I don't want Robert Downey Jr.'s career to go down with no Oscar wins. And I'm not sure if he'll have a better performance than this down the line. And I do think that in terms of like, this is a great performance. And if he has to have 1 Oscar for something in his career, and I'm betting on it being Oppenheimer or something after Oppenheimer, I'm not feeling great about my odds of something after Oppenheimer. Not to say that he's not a great actor. He just doesn't do a lot of projects. And the projects that he has done historically have been mostly like commercial blockbuster stuff, including Oppenheimer. So like, I think I would give it to RDJ, knowing that Gosling is going to be right back on that stage again, probably sometime soon. But yeah, I would be super thrilled to see Gosling get it. That's just like a almost political reason for picking RDJ. But I'm a huge Ryan Gosling fan, and I would love to see him win this award. I'd love to see any of them, really. They're all great.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there with Robert Downey Jr. He's an actor who I like but don't love, and I find his best performances are when he sort of doing a variation on what his usual shtick is, but there being some sort of a twist to it, whether that's something like an Oppenheimer or his work in something like Zodiac, which I think are probably two of his strongest performances. They're really sort of leaning into who he is as a person and then kind of putting a bit of a twist on that, which I thought is the best way to use him. Because the times when he does try to do straight drama, I don't think he's that strong. I'm thinking, because we end up getting something like The Judge, which Robert Duvall got nominated for a couple of years ago, which was an absolute slog to get through. And anytime he tries to do these straight drama movies like that, I think it's a failure. Whereas when they're doing a sort of a spin on his personality, you get something like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which, is terrific. And I agree. I don't know how many times in the future he's going to get a chance to have a role that is this suited for him, that it is such a big part, so well written. He's able to give it his all, but still sort of be in his wheelhouse that we all know and like and appreciate. So yeah, I think this is a great way for you to kind of categorize that, this being a perfect award for him to win, where it's both overdue and deserving at the same time, where it's not like, the next time he gets nominated, we're like, well, we didn't give it to him for Oppenheimer, so we should give it to him for this sort of thing.
Right. I just don't want it to be like an Al Pacino Scent of a Woman thing,
yes,
where it's like, Scent of a Woman, not a bad movie. Not remotely close to Pacino's best work, not even close to Pacino's best work in that decade, right? So I also just think like Robert Downey Jr., 3 nominations and a win, 3 nominations across 3 different decades also is like, that feels correct for his career. If someone's like, he has 4 nominations and a win because he gets one legacy one and I don't know, another 10 years, I'm going to be like, I'm not sure about that. But he can just float on the Endgame money and he can win his Oscar for this. And I would be totally fine with that.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. All right, let's move to Best Actress. And so we've got Annette Bening for Nyad, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. So this is where you are really going to have to put that Monopoly money where your mouth is. And what are your thoughts?
So I will start with my prediction, which, this is definitely one of the ones where it's way more in the air. I'm going to predict Lily Gladstone. The reason behind it, 2 reasons. One, I've been rooting for her above all the other nominees, kind of the whole award season. 2, I think it was a 2-woman race between her and Emma Stone, and it really, really seems like Emma Stone took her foot off the gas, so to speak, the last, month and a half. And it's all culminated in, I believe it was the SAG Awards where Lily Gladstone won and Emma Stone was like ecstatic, and that went like semi-viral. So I would say Lily Gladstone, but because I've been supporting it for so long, my personal pick is, I don't think she's going to get enough votes to make any difference, but I would just cast my vote for Sandra Hüller for the sake of being like, let's not forget that she was like pretty easily the best part of Anatomy of a Fall and really excellent. So if I had a ballot, I would cast it for Sandra Hüller, but I am really hoping for Lily Gladstone, and I think it'll be Gladstone.
Yeah. So for me, the toss up is, Stone versus Gladstone. And I would actually say I want Emma Stone to win because I think she gives such a gutsy, over-the-top performance where it's so unique, because I'm a Yorgos Lanthimos fan, and all of his other previous movies have very stilted performances. And I don't mean that in any sort of pejorative way. I really love this sort of stilted performances that he wants from his actors, where it's like, I just want less, give me less. There we go. Now we're at it. Obviously, The Favorite, I think, sort of changed that a little bit, where there is quite a bit of over-the-top acting at certain moments, but still there's a lot of stiltedness at times. Whereas in Poor Things, I think he just allowed Emma Stone to go absolutely wild. And that's a hard thing to do, and it very easily could have been something that we were mocking or thought was ridiculous, and I thought she did a great job, and so I would love it if she wins, but I am in agreement with you that I think it's going to be Gladstone, and even though Gladstone won the SAG, I thought Stone was going to win it. I still thought Lily Gladstone was going to win the Oscar, just because I sort of feel like it's one of those performances that I think a lot of the Academy is going to be like, look, we have a chance to do the right thing here and award Lily Gladstone. And what is a performance from from a minority who is often excluded from the Oscars completely. And we have the chance to do the right thing here and nominate a fantastic performance that is not over the top acting, that is very still, that is very quiet, that is mostly reacting and listening. And I feel like a lot of Oscar voters are going to be like, hey, we have the power to do the right thing here, and let's do it. And so because of that, I think Gladstone is going to be the winner.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, let's move over to Best Actor. And so we've got Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. So this is where we both talk about how much we believe Bradley Cooper's going to win, right?
Just him and the prosthetic nose Oscar night, they better not leave the stage because they're winning everything.
All right, no, in seriousness, my want and my think... want and should win, want and will win, whatever, however we're doing this, should win, will win, is the same. And it's Murphy. Much as I was just talking about Gladstone, talking about, quieter, more subtle performances, that's what Murphy does here, where it is a lot of internalized thinking and feeling about how you can be the world's smartest person and also realize that you could also be the world's most dangerous person at the exact same time. And what Murphy has done for this role, I know a lot has been made about, Murphy finally kind of getting his dues as a lead actor, and he's been putting in the work and been the lead actor in many projects for, over 2 decades now, but it's never been to this level. So yeah, I think Cillian Murphy is a very deserving winner, and will kind of go down, especially if you look at recent, I don't know, every once in a while on Twitter, you'll be like, rank the last 10 winners of this category. And you look at the last 10 winners of the Best Actor award, it's mostly been complete crap. Like, it has not been worthy winners. And if the Oscars had a chance to go back and redo it, I would love it if they did. But like, oh boy, it is awful. And I think Murphy would easily be probably the best actor winner in probably, the last 10, 15 years.
I don't have anything to add. It's my pick. It's my prediction. I'll keep it understated for the understated actor. I think it's also one of those things where if we looked at it in 5 years and he hadn't won it, we'd be like, what were we doing? Like, really? We gave it to Bradley Cooper in the same way that we're like, we gave it to Rami Malek? Like, yeah. Really? Yeah. Which in the moment was pretty egregious. But the more you look back at it, like, we wouldn't even be having this conversation if we just given it to Bradley Cooper for like A Star Is Born, which isn't even necessarily the best performance from that year, but it's a lot better than the winner. So yeah, no, it's Cillian Murphy.
All right, so the next category that we're going to do is Best Original Score, and the nominees are American Fiction, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. So lead us off here, Todd.
Yeah, my personal pick and my prediction is obviously Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I've just never heard anything quite like it.
Never.
Completely original. No, I do have the same pick and prediction again, and that's Oppenheimer. This is just, Ludwig Göransson is just on a different level with Oppenheimer, and he's just kind of on a different level than every composer in the world right now. I listened to this score so much that one of the songs made my Spotify Wrapped, so I kind of feel obliged from that end to pick it. But I think it'll be Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm. I'm in agreement with you there. I really love the weirdness that was the Poor Things score, and I thought Robbie Robertson's work on Killers of the Flower Moon was really beautiful and really suited the film. But I know it's going to be cliche that yes, Göransson's score is the most score as well. But damn, it was really powerful stuff. I think. I know Hans Zimmer had a great run with Nolan where you're like, wow, I hope Zimmer does Nolan's movies for the rest of his career. And then Göransson came and did Tenet, and you're like, Wait, no, never mind. Goranson, you gotta do Nolan's movies for the rest of his career because you two are clearly a match made in heaven. Like Goranson clearly has gone to the school of Hans Zimmer as far as like stylistically how to be so bombastic and what you need to do to sort of really hit the right notes. No pun intended, or pun intended maybe. But yeah, this, back to back. I wasn't a huge fan of Tenet, but clearly Goranson's sensibilities work so well with Nolan's sensibilities.
Yeah, and because Goranson stepped in, it means that we have Zimmer handed off to Denis Villeneuve. So we got these Dune scores where they're playing sandworms out there. It's like it's a win on all fronts.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let us go to our next category, and that is Best Original Song. So we've got The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot, I'm Just Ken from Barbie, It Never Went Away from American Symphony. Oh, I can never pronounce this. I'm just going to say A Song for My People, Killers of a Flower Moon, and What Was I Made For? Barbie. It's funny. Every time I have to read it, I'm always like, oh yeah, I should prepare and make sure I listen how to say it properly. And every time I go to record, I'm like, and I forgot to listen how to say it properly. So I'm not even going to try this time. We talked about it a bit at the top of the show as far as Barbie having 2 nominations here. I love I'm Just Ken. I know it's a bit of a joke song, but it is so good. And that's my pick for who I want to win. It would be so fun. Like, I know it's been this huge debate of whether or not Ryan Gosling is going to perform at the Oscars. And then last week, it finally came out, yes, Ryan Gosling is going to actually perform. And I hope all the Kens are up there. I hope Simu Liu is up there. I hope Michael Cera is up there. I hope John Cena is up there. I would love it if all of the guys that are in this movie are up on stage supporting Ryan Gosling, because that would just be the highlight of the Oscars this year. But that's just my want. I think How Was I Made is going to win. Billie Eilish is going to be a 2-time Oscar winner, and I don't even think she's like 21, 22 years old. I don't know how old she is, but like it's crazy that she's about to have 2 Oscars already.
Yeah, this is super uninteresting for our Monopoly money piling and free parking because I have the same prediction and the same pick, but I have one better for you on the performance. So I've been saying for months like Ryan Gosling has to perform, and literally sent a text like all my friends in all caps when it was announced this week that he was. But my proposition is it's not Simu Liu and John Cena and all of them, although if they want to, they can. It's Gosling and all of the actor nominees just doing I'm Just Ken. So we got like Mark Ruffalo and Paul Giamatti and Cillian Murphy looking sullen, but they're all doing it, and it would be perfect. Like they're all Ken for about 5 minutes, and it's the biggest thing to happen in the Oscars since ever. Like I think it would eclipse the Will Smith slap. So they should do that. I know they only have a week, but if they can put that together, just run it.
This is crazy. And, if they also include like all the supporting actors as well, have Robert De Niro up there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pick, in my mind, I'm looking at the 10 male actors and being like, okay, who is going to absolutely commit to that bit the most and who is going to probably be the funniest up there? I could see Coleman Domingo probably being the most committed out of everyone.
Sterling K. Brown, too, would also be very committed.
I think, I've seen enough interviews of Sterling K. Brown. He's got enough energy for everyone involved. But I think it would probably be the funniest seeing Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, no, 100%. It would really make me yearn for us to have nominated Willem Dafoe, because I think it would equally be the funniest and the most committed performance from Willem Dafoe. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, we would have to settle for him watching from like the front row.
Yes, he's also going to be the most enthusiastic cheerleader too.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be like dancing in the aisles.
All right, let's move on to original screenplay. And we've got Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Maestro, May December, and Past Lives. All right, so you go first because I got to figure out how I'm going to shape my opinion to be the exact same as yours, since clearly we're identical.
Yeah, I'll start. This one was tough for me, not in my prediction. I've had this prediction kind of locked in for a while, and I think it's actually probably is like the betting favorite, although I have not checked what casinos are saying. But my pick to win, my prediction is Anatomy of a Fall. I think if it wins only one Oscar, it'll be for best writing. I don't think Justine Triet will win Best Director for obvious reasons we'll get to later. And yeah, I think the screenplay is really excellent for Anatomy of a Fall. My personal pick would be between Past Lives and May December, and I think I would just give the edge to Past Lives because I don't think it got enough love in the nominations. So I would give it as much love as possible in the wins. But I think the Past Lives and May December screenplays are both amazing. So yeah, those would be my personal picks. But I think it's Anatomy of a Falls.
So it's interesting. For me, I thought for the longest time that The Holdovers was going to be the one that was going to win it, and maybe, other than Divine Joy Randolph, be the only award that it ends up winning. And then it sort of feels like it's been fading away. Other than Randolph, who's just been super dominant the whole way, the movie has kind of fallen off completely. So I'm going to also agree with you in that I think Anatomy of a Fall is going to be the winner, and I think it's going to be the only award it ends up winning. Because it seems to have been getting enough love and sort of separated itself from the rest of the pack there. But as far as what I want to win, we're pretty close here. You named two movies and you ended up going with Past Lives. I'm going to go with your other pick, May December. I just loved how ridiculous that movie was. You know, it sort of seems like every other year we get a movie where critics and audiences just sort of don't understand what the movie is going for, and it's like, guys, this is a hilarious movie, this is a comedy, why are you not laughing, why are you not enjoying how delicious and over the top this movie is? And for this year it's May December, where I think it just went over the heads of too many people, where they're like, I don't get it, or this is a serious subject, you shouldn't be joking about this, or whatever you want to say about it. And yeah, it's sort of, you know, Todd Haynes doing his best David Lynch impression.
Yeah, it is such a spectacular screenplay. It's one of my, I think I put it in my top 5 maybe favorite movies of the year. If it wasn't 5, it was like 6 or 7. It was definitely in the top 10. Just an amazing movie and such a funny piece of writing that's really brought to life by some stellar performances as well. But yeah, I would be thrilled if the Academy saw something that it seems like the majority of audiences did not see and awarded it this award.
Yeah. All right. And then now going over to adapted screenplay, we've got American Fiction, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, In the Zone of Interest. This category looked like it was going to get a whole lot more competitive once Barbie was moved from original to adapted. And I know it still sort of confuses a lot of people about why Barbie was moved over there, but the Academy has the strictest rules out of all awards bodies in terms of what they consider adapted. And it was no surprise to me that Barbie was moved over there. I was honestly surprised that people thought it was going to be original at the Oscars for the longest time. That said, I would love it to be Oppenheimer. I think it just does a really great job of, you know, making this really complicated science story into a really human story about how conflicting of emotions you can feel about, you know, trying to do the right thing, but also realizing that the right thing could very quickly become the wrong thing. So I really love the screenplay and thought it was terrific. That said, I think the winner is going to be American Fiction. Now, this was a movie I liked but didn't love, mostly because of the screenplay I thought was the issues, where I really enjoyed both the satire aspect of it, and I also really love the family drama aspect of it. But the problem was it didn't dedicate enough time to either side and ended up falling short, in my opinion. That said, it sort of seems like it's getting a lot of love, and it's going to be the winner here. And it's really interesting because normally the Best Picture winner also ends up winning screenplay, and it looks like this year it probably is not going to be the case, with Anatomy of a Fall and American Fiction, in my opinion, at least being the front runners. What about you, Todd?
This is essentially just a solo podcast because I also picked American Fiction, and I picked it for almost the identical reasons of, like, this might be my least favorite screenplay of the 5, and that's why I was like, it's probably going to win. It's a fine movie. Like, the movie itself is fine. Jeffrey Wright is great in it, and Sterling K. Brown is also very good. I don't think he's given nearly enough screen time in the film, and I don't think any particular plot within the film actually is given enough screen time either. So yeah, I have problems with the writing, but it's the exact kind of like pretty much neutered satire that the Academy, I think, still goes for. If I had to make my pick, though, for your similar justification for Oppenheimer, is why I would go with. I'm going to step on your corner here because I know this is like your movie, even though we've talked extensively about it. I would go with The Zone of Interest because I think this is an incredibly hard historical event to adapt, and he didn't adapt it, right? Like he adapted a historical event from a book about that historical event.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like almost a double adaptation. And Jonathan Glazer brings to life such a vivid story and imagery that is also really about nothing other than existing at this one time in one place in a horrific part of the world and history. And he does it so seamlessly, like just incredibly well. And I think it's a true testament to his power as a director, as an adapter, as a visionary to bring kind of this story to the screen in all of its grotesque and mundane ways. And so I would give that to The Zone of Interest. But so far, I think we're eight of eight together in predicting the same prediction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're right. I absolutely adore The Zone of Interest. I think for me, the fact that the way the script works is because of subtext about what is not being said. So I think for me, that's my only hesitation for me to name it as my favorite, because I think, it's all the other components of the movie, I think, stand out as not stronger, because I do think the script is strong, but more reasons why the movie is as successful as it is, because the screenplay is more about the subtext than the actual text for me.
Yeah, I can 100% see that. I think the thing to do here is to just give Best Original Screenplay to May December, and then also give Best Adapted Screenplay to May December, and just be like, it's a little bit of both, so it just gets all of the writing awards.
Right.
That would fix all of the issue.
All right, let's move over to Best Cinematography, and we've got El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. All right, so lead us off here, Todd.
Can I ask a question? Had you seen El Conde before this nomination?
I did. It was a movie. I really love the director, Pablo Larraín, and I'm a big fan of his movies. And so I had been wanting to watch it for a while. And then about a week or two before the Oscar nominations had come out, I was like, this movie probably isn't going to get nominated at the Oscars, so I should watch it now before my life is consumed by trying to watch all the Oscar-nominated movies. And hey, turns out it ended up not being a waste of my time. And also, I really love this movie. A lot of people I'm seeing online really hated it, but I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, see, I kind of similarly was like, I want to watch this movie before. It was further back. It was in like December. I was like, I want to watch this before I have to really lock in kind of my favorites of the year, etc. But yeah, I'm one of those people. I didn't love this movie. That being said, I was like, yo, the cinematography is a vibe. This movie is super vibey. And when it was nominated on that morning, I was shocked. I was like, wait, everyone else saw the vibe. I'm not sure it was still one of the 5 best shot movies of the year, but I just thought it was very funny that it was nominated. That's all to just like fill time, because I have a very uninteresting prediction as well as pick, and that's Oppenheimer. It's literally revolutionary, kind of what he did cinematography wise. So, yeah.
Ditto. As far as El Conde goes, I consider picking that for my want to win, just because I am such a sucker for black and white photography. It's always so gorgeous, and I think they do such a great job of really highlighting the contrast in the black and white photography in that movie. It's beautiful to look at, but you're right. Oppenheimer, think, easy.
Yeah. I will just say before we move on to kind of the back half here, if we have the same, I don't know, like the next 4 categories we do, if they are the same, I'm just going to become convinced that you're on my Google Doc, because there's just no chance we have the same 4 picks for the next like 4 categories.
Well, we're about to find out. So now we're going to talk about Best Sound, and that's The Creator, Maestro, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, and The Zone of Interest. For me, I would absolutely love it. My want is The Zone of Interest. We were just talking about it for the screenplay, and I think the sound is probably the best aspect of this movie, and a movie that is strong across the board, because as Paulo Bautista said numerous times on both this podcast and his own podcast, that he went to a screening in New York where Jonathan Glazer was at, and he said that he was crafting two movies, a movie that you see and a movie that you hear. And that is so true. The movie that you hear is a haunting, horrific movie that will sear into your mind what a pivotal moment in history was for the bad. And what you see is obviously this, lighthearted family drama about a career-driven man and a woman who wants to raise her kids in the countryside, and sort of all this, weird things. If you read the IMDb description of this movie, I think it's on IMDb or somewhere, where it's just like the log line, and you have no idea what this movie is about. It's ridiculous. But my want is The Zone of Interest, and I think it would be the best thing in the world if this movie wins Best Sound. I think that would be a real highlight for the Oscars, for sort of recognizing true genius and originality. That said, I think it's going to end up being Oppenheimer, and I don't think it's a bad pick in any way. I think it's a very great number 2 for me, but unfortunately, I think Oppenheimer is going to win, even if, in my opinion, The Zone of Interest is better. What about you?
Oh, okay. Well, we're one of one. The exact same thoughts. That is verbatim, pretty much my exact thought process here. I think the sound is more pivotal to The Zone of Interest storytelling. I think the sounds of The Zone of Interest stuck out to me more. I think actually there's a lot of big sounds in both of these films, in The Zone of Interest and in Oppenheimer. But for some reason, the sound that sticks out to me above all else from both films combined is the retching at the end of The Zone of Interest, as the main character is walking down the stairs. Mm-hmm. His dry heaving is I can still just hear it in the back of my head, and then it goes to, it cuts to black, and I don't know. There's the sound in The Zone of Interest is so crucial to the storytelling, and that's not taking anything away from the sound in Oppenheimer, which I think is excellent. I just don't think it's as crucial to the storytelling as it is in The Zone of Interest. But yeah, I'm also betting on Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go to costume design, and we've got Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. So tell me what I think, Todd.
No, see, this one has to be different, because I'm betting everything on Napoleon. No, I'm not. But although costume's not terrible in Napoleon, not the worst of these nominees, I think. I don't know if I'm straying from common thought here. I'm going Poor Things to win, and I'm going Barbie would be my pick. I think most people have the inverse, right, where they think maybe Poor Things deserves to win and Barbie's going to win. I just think that there's a lot of love for Poor Things. I think maybe even more love than there is for Barbie, just writ large. And it's not going to win a lot of categories. And the costumes really stand out in this movie. But yeah, so I would pick Poor Things I'm picking Poor Things to win costumes, even though I think I would go with Barbie, because I remember the costumes in Barbie really also stand out. But these could be this is a coin flip for me. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. We're very close. My want and think is Barbie. I agree that Poor Things does have some pretty fantastic costumes, and it's probably my number 2 pick in this category as far as favorites go. But yeah, I think they just do such a fun job recreating the actual former Barbie costumes, Barbie outfits, for everyone. I really loved it. So that's my pick there. I'm not going to be real creative with that one. I'm not going to overthink it.
So this podcast is going to end, and our one difference is going to be costumes, and that's going to be our most. We're going to be the only 2 people on Earth where the most anticipated category when we're watching next Sunday is costumes, because it's the only thing we've voted different.
Yeah. And watch it end up being like Oppenheimer wins it.
Yeah, we just had really good hats.
I'm a little confused of how Oppenheimer got nominated for this category. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. The Academy just obviously thinks Oppenheimer has better costuming than visual effects. Come on, it's so obvious.
Apparently. All right, let's go to best makeup and hairstyling. And so we've got Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Society of the Snow. This is definitely a bit of an interesting category for sure. I know we've already made several jokes about Maestro, but I actually think it is my favorite, and I also want it to win, specifically because I know the nose is getting a lot of jokes thrown at it. Like, it is a ridiculous nose. That said, when Bradley Cooper is playing the older version of Leonard Bernstein, I think that is probably the best old age makeup I have ever seen. Like, it looks so realistic that it would not shock me that in, 30, 40 years, that is exactly what Bradley Cooper looks like to a T. They did such a great job of making it look so natural. I'm impressed. And Carey Mulligan as well. She obviously doesn't live to the same age that, older Leonard Bernstein does, but as she's aging, I think they did such a great job of very slowly accentuating how she's aging and adding wrinkles and little bits here and there. I think they did a great job on both of them. And so that's my pick. I think Society of the Snow has some really interesting subtle work as well. Poor Things, I think, is, the most makeup, and I think they do a really good job with that. Oppenheimer is one that confuses me a little bit once again. And Golda, as much as I hate that movie, they did do a good job on Helen Mirren, but I hate that movie so much, I don't want to talk about it anymore. So, Todd.
So everything you just said from Maestro about that's what Bradley Cooper is going to look like when he's older is my exact justification for picking Poor Things and Willem Dafoe. I'm just like, that's exactly what Willem Dafoe is going to look like in 20 years. No, I think you actually did sum it up, though, when you said it's the most hair and makeup. And I think for things like production design, costuming, hair and makeup, the Academy often gives it to most, which is not an original thought of mine, right? I'm not even the first person to say that on this very podcast. But because of that, I think it's going to be Poor Things. I think there's also just like enough distaste for Maestro in amongst voters that doesn't exist for Poor Things that would push it over the top. So I'm going to go Poor Things here, so we have two categories to differ on.
Nice. Okay. Well, things are starting to get spicy here. All right, let us go to best live action short. We're going to do the three shorts in a row. Todd, as you mentioned, you'd see some of them, but not all of them, so not enough to make a real sort of educated guess on who you think is going to win. So I'm going to be the only one who sort of briefly goes over them, but best live action short is The After, Invincible, Night of Fortune, Red, White, and Blue, and The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Overall, I was pretty disappointed with this category this year. In general, I find the live action shorts are probably the worst out of the three short categories, and sort of this year was no exception. That said, we somehow got 4 short films from Wes Anderson this year, and they are all absolutely delightful. And I actually thought that Netflix and Wes Anderson was not going to campaign because it would be unfair to every other short film out there. That said, my want and think will win is The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. These Roald Dahl shorts are probably the most Wes Anderson has ever Wes Andersoned. And I absolutely love them. And it is such a creative and fun and unique short. And so that's my pick. I think it will win. I want it to win. So there we go. Moving on to animated short. We've got Letter to a Pig, 95 Senses, Our Uniform, Pachyderm, and War is Over, inspired by the music of John Lennon and Yoko Ono. So this is a category where, unlike short film, where I didn't like most of them, these of them I felt they were all sort of okay. None of them I really loved, none of them I really hated, so they're all just kind of okay. That said, my want to win is probably Our Uniform, probably because it's the most uniquely animated out of all of them. Basically doing stop motion animation by painting on what I believe to be like denim on jeans and other articles of clothing, and doing a really unique sort of stop motion look that way. That said, I think the winner is probably going to be War is Over. it's such a slick looking animation. It was animated by a company called Unreal Engine, which mostly does video games, and so it does kind of have like a very video game look to it. That said, like, it's stunning to look at, even if the story is incredibly basic. Now the last one is Best Documentary Short, and the nominees are The ABCs of Book Banning, The Barber of Little Rock, Island in Between, The Last Repair Shop, and 99 WIPO. I would say this is the strongest of the three categories. I enjoyed all of the films here except for Island in Between, just because I thought they didn't really give enough. My want to win is probably The Last Repair Shop, and I think will win is The ABCs of Book Banning, but the shorts are always so tough to tell. Like, if you want to throw a dart at them or pick a name out of the hat, and that probably has just as good of a shot of being the correct winner as my predictions here do. I know you haven't seen very many of them, but do you have any thoughts on my picks there, Todd?
I think your picks are all great. I think when Wes Anderson definitely does win this award, I'm going to pretend that he's up there giving a speech for Asteroid City. And if War is Over wins, which is the one short I've seen in that category, and I thought I will be polite and say not good, I will mute my television and grab water and snacks for the remaining part of the ceremony. I don't know. But I haven't seen any of the documentaries yet. I'm really looking forward to seeing those as a collection, because those are usually my favorites. Those are also usually the ones that stick with me the longest in terms of like what I remember years down the line.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you about when Wes Anderson should be there accepting awards on behalf of Asteroid City, as another preview for my Choose Our Own Oscar nominees post that's going to be coming out soon. Asteroid City features heavily in that as far as my picks go.
Yeah, good. It's like all 10 Best Picture nominees?
100%, yep. All right, so let us now move on back to our full-length categories, and we're going to go to Best Animated Feature, and we've got The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I just talked a lot there, Todd, so why don't you lead us off?
Sure. This is probably a two-horse race. I actually think it's definitely a two-horse race, and I think it should be a three-horse race, because The Boy and the Heron, Across the Spider-Verse, and Robot Dreams are all fantastic. Robot Dreams is so special. Such a special little film, and definitely going to be the least watched of all five amongst the general public. If I had a vote, I would vote for Across the Spider-Verse, simply because it was just my favorite of these five nominees. That being said, while I'm sure it is also the favorite for the majority of voters, I think I'm going to go with The Boy and the Heron, simply on there will be another Spider-Verse movie. We know this. There will definitely be other films from these filmmakers in the many decades to come as well, hopefully. But there likely will not be another Miyazaki, despite the rumor mill grinding. And The Boy and the Heron's very well animated. It had what many Miyazaki films don't, which is like a very star-studded and star-driven kind of campaign for it with its English dubbing. There are lots of stars. Christian Bale has worked with Miyazaki before, right? Like, many stars have worked with Miyazaki in the English dubbing, but there hasn't been a kind of campaign for it in the way that like Florence Pugh and Robert Pattinson kind of campaigned for The Boy and the Heron. And I think there's a sentiment that if this is Miyazaki's last film, like I know he already has one, but let's give him another. It's not like having one is enough for the greatest animator to ever live. So I would predict The Boy and the Heron. I will be very happy if Across the Spider-Verse wins, but I also would be pretty surprised, because I know that they can give that love to it for the third in the trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree that it's a two-horse race, and for me, my want is also a two-horse race, but not the one that is happening in real life, and that's between Robot Dreams and Nimona. I thought those were the two strongest for me personally, but Robot Dreams, far and away the best film in this category. It is a stunning, use of animation to make essentially a silent movie, with the exception of a couple musical cues. Absolutely gorgeous animation, and a real tearjerker of a film too. And then what you were saying about between Boy and the Heron and Across the Spider-Verse, like a little statistic here is sequels in the best animation category. There have only ever been 2 sequels to win. And the first one was Toy Story 3. And the reason why Toy Story 3 was the first is because Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 1 came out before the best animated Oscar was a thing. So it made sense. They're like, hey, it's our first chance to honor the Toy Story franchise. Let us acknowledge it here. Makes perfect sense. Plus, Toy Story 3 was fantastic. And then the only other time that a sequel has won was Toy Story 4. So you really only have those 2, and it's so unique where I would remove Toy Story 3 because of the when the category came into existence. So Toy Story 4 is the only true sequel to have won this category. And because of that, that's why I think it might be a little bit tough for Across the Spider-Verse to win this category. And you're absolutely right with everything that you were saying about Miyazaki. It's probably his last movie. He said he's retired before. He says he's retired again. He said he might make another movie. We never really know with him. Who knows? Also, he is very old. So, I would love it if we get another Miyazaki movie. That would be fantastic. But if we're being realistic, I don't know if that's going to be a thing that happens here. So because of all that, and because, like you were saying, that they have the opportunity, we know Across the Spider-Verse Part 2 is coming out. We know that. And so that's their potential chance to award it again, because I don't think they're going to award Across the Spider-Verse, the Spider-Verse franchise 3 straight wins. I do not think that's going to be a thing that's going to happen. So because of that, I think they're going to hold off, and they're going to go with The Boy and the Heron.
Right. It's like the inverse of the Robert Downey Jr. thing, where it's like, are we betting that this is going to be the better, or like, are we betting Part 3 of the Spider-Verse movies is going to be terrible? Because if it isn't terrible, it should win Best Animated Picture. Just based on the pedigree of the first 2 films, there's like, from what we've seen, a good third act to this story would surpass pretty much any animated nomination in like a regular year, right? So that's probably a pretty safe bet compared to another Miyazaki or yeah. I mean, and I think you're right. I think 3 straight wins is hardly. It's exceptionally out of the ordinary, and it's very unlikely to happen.
Yeah. All right, so let us move to Best Documentary Feature, and we've got Bobby Wine, The People's President, The Eternal Memory, 4 Daughters, To Kill a Tiger, and 20 Days in Mariupol. I was pretty ho-hum on this category overall this year. My favorite of this crop is probably 4 Daughters. It's a very unique film using actors to work across a real life family to play 2 missing daughters, to sort of recreate this family's memories and their story to tell. Such a unique and beautiful way to do it in a very powerful story. That said, I think 20 Days in Mariupol is going to be the winner. It is of this group, it is the most politically relevant movie, dealing with Russia's invasion into Ukraine and sort of giving us real-time, on-the-ground footage of the first 20 days of the invasion and how horrific and brutal it is. We're like, stuff like this, you're always sort of surprised and impressed when you're able to witness this kind of footage. And I don't mean that in a positive way. Like, it is very much in a, dear God, humanity at its worst. I cannot believe these things are happening in the world right now. This is the worst thing to happen. And I wouldn't be shocked if maybe next year we sort of get a documentary about what is going on in Gaza, and we're sort of talking about the exact same thing. But because of that, the political relevancy, I think 20 Days in Mariupol is going to be the winner. What about you, Todd?
I agree. I think it's going to be the winner. I think this might have the highest vote to screen time ratio. Like, I think that there are a lot of voters that are going to vote this as the best documentary, after watching like the first 25 minutes, because by the half hour mark, the opening half hour of this movie is like a real like weird. They are pulling no punches. They are giving you all of that footage. I mean, or not all of obviously, but they are giving you the worst of all of the footage from the 20 days, and you figure that out by, I don't know, day 3, which is about the 25-minute mark, and it is very hard to watch. So in that regard, I think it's going to be the winner. I also think I would be my winner because there are so few films that come around that I think are such essential viewing, and I think when it becomes like this is an essentially contextual and contemporary film, then it is deserving of the award. So not a film I'm likely to rewatch anytime soon, nor would be like, let's fire this up. But yeah, that'd be my winner.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Best International Film, which, you know, for my money, pound for pound, is always the most stacked category every year. This year, no exception. We've got Io Capitano, Perfect Days, Society of the Snow, The Teacher's Lounge, and The Zone of Interest. As we've both already said, neither of us have seen Io Capitano, but Todd, what are your thoughts on this category?
My thoughts on this category of, I have not seen Io Capitano, but if the other films nominated are any indication, this will also be like at minimum a 4-star film. The other 4 films are all at least 4-star films. They are amazing. My pick personally, and my prediction, is The Zone of Interest, with no love lost for Perfect Days or Society of the Snow or The Teacher's Lounge. We've talked about a couple of those films together after our VIF wrap up, but they're all really excellent films. And like, definitely, I think when people are like, oh, I'm going to watch the Oscar nominees, they always mean like they're going to watch the Best Picture ones. But I think if they were to prioritize the second category, there's pretty much nothing since not a single year, I would reckon, since like the Oscars So White debacle kind of made the Academy really look in the mirror and make itself more international and diverse. I don't think there's been a year since then where the international film lineup hasn't been like the second one that should be prioritized to watch, because they are amazing films. And
I echo everything you were just saying there. I agree. Like, obviously there's one, you know, the movie that is also nominated for Best Picture is probably going to be the winner. Anytime that ever happens, it's, you know, whether it's Parasite or Roma, or I'm blanking on the few other times it's happened. Anytime a movie is nominated for both Best Picture and Best International or things like that, you know, that's the one that's going to win. And so this year, the one that's going to win is The Zone of Interest. There is, you know, zero doubt in my mind about that. And in fact, I would probably say that is up there with Divine Joy Randolph as probably the safest lock of the night. Those two there. But if any of the other movies won, I think they would also be very worthy winners. Like, I think back to the time that Pan's Labyrinth was the winner, but it was not the winner. The Lives of Others was the winner, and Pan's Labyrinth was the runner-up. And I remember being so mad because I didn't see The Lives of Others until after the Oscars. And then when I finally watched them, like, oh, no, that movie is absolutely incredible and completely deserving. But, you know, if Pan's Labyrinth won, it would also be as equally deserving, and I would be just as happy with either one of them winning. Like, it's definitely one of those things. This category is so stacked this year. That said, I've got huge love for The Teacher's Lounge. That's my number one of this category, but like, it's like The Zone of Interest is like a hair's difference below it. It is so close. I just really adored The Teacher's Lounge.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. I'm glad it got nominated. I think that was a movie that deserves a bigger audience and would certainly not have the audience that it's going to have if it were not for the Oscars. So really, I'm happy that it got nominated.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move over to visual effects, and we've got The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. weirdly enough, kind of like international, this is a pretty strong category this year as far as movies that are actually good and enjoyable to watch. I haven't seen Napoleon yet, so I can't comment on that one either. But I didn't like this movie, but the visual effects were absolutely impeccable, and that is The Creator. I know so much has been said. You know, both The Creator and Godzilla Minus One have sort of, their narrative has been, hey, Hollywood, you can make good-looking movies that cost less than $200 million. It is completely possible to have stunning CGI and not waste so much money on it. And both of those movies are prime examples of that. I think The Creator was made for something like $50 million, and obviously it's been, you know, touted to no end that Godzilla Minus One was made for about the equivalent of 15 million American dollars. Obviously, the industries of Hollywood versus Japan is very different. That's why the cost is a bit different. But yeah, they're both stunning examples of being able to do quality special effects on a budget. That said, The Creator movie, like I said, not that high of, the best special effects I have seen in quite a number of years. It is between the robot designs where they've got this sort of unique, you know, cylinder-shaped hole through the back of their heads, or the spaceship, this giant battleship hovering over Earth with these like giant lasers that shoot down to scan everything. Beautiful to look at. The movie, whatever, but the visual effects, fantastic. What about you, Todd?
I feel very similarly, except for I lean the other way, right? So I'm going Godzilla Minus One here for best visual effects. It would also be my pick. I agree. I think even maybe The Creator has better visual effects. Both are so far and away better than the other nominees here. They're also just very different. I think the visual effects that are happening in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning and the visual effects happening in Napoleon, are just very different than the other three nominees. Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a little closer because there's at least like sci-fi elements, and that's just, in my opinion, the weakest of the five nominees. Even the good MCU, like the good looking quote unquote MCU movies, that still have so much of that kind of like blue screen sheen so obviously within them that when they're put up against other films such as Godzilla Minus One or The Creator, it's like, wow, I guess you needed five nominees. But yeah, so the reason I'm going with Godzilla Minus One is, one, maybe this is just like my corner of the internet because I like this movie more. I feel like it's been campaigning a little harder than Gareth Edwards and the Creator team has, insofar as like they did the re-release of Godzilla Minus One in black and white. And there has been a strong narrative for both films. But I think I do think the quality of the film like literally just might matter here. Like I just think more people are going to enjoy Godzilla Minus One than The Creator, which is a real humdrum, like 2 hour plus, very cliched story. So beautiful movie, like an incredible movie. It really would be a beautiful movie to just like throw on muted in the background and like be like, hey, look, stick the 9-year-old in front of the TV and be like, look, I can have peace and quiet for 2 hours because they're just going to look at it. But I don't have a 9-year-old, and I'm not sure how many Academy voters vote based on what their 9-year-old would enjoy more. But yeah, I'm going Godzilla Minus One because that's just like where my heart is.
I mean, your comment based on 9-year-olds, that is how quite a few voters vote for best animated film. Like there's been no shortage. There's been no shortage of people coming out and be like, oh, for that one, I just let my kid pick which one was their favorite. And it's like, what? How are you a serious voter if you allow that to happen?
Those are not serious people. The serious voters are the ones that let their kids pick for best film editing. That's
right.
That's the obvious one.
Oh, yeah. As a huge stan of the G-Man himself, I would be absolutely ecstatic if Godzilla Minus One won this category. And I think you're absolutely right. I think your reasoning is very accurate that, you know, if they want to choose maybe the better movie, I think Godzilla Minus One is the pick. And the fact that, you know, maybe it also kind of, for all these people, all these other different, you know, people that work in different departments that watch the project that they work on, the the budgets balloon out of control because the special effects needs to be blah, 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 whatever, and it has to cost $200 million to make, and it comes at the expense of their own budget, they can look at Godzilla Minus One and be like, see, look, you just need to hire the right people, pay the right people properly, and you can get something really good.
Yeah. I also think this is a matter of like visual effects cost a lot, and what happens often, especially with movies like MCU movies, and this is not a slight at MCU movies, but like movies that star Chris Pratt or Robert Downey Jr. or Brie Larson, right? These are actors in high demand and have very busy schedules, and so a lot of the time, the cost of visual effects comes at the expense of costuming and like hair and makeup cost, right? Where like they'll just put the dots on them and start shooting, but films like Godzilla Minus One, films like The Creator, they didn't do that, right? Like, not that there's sort of incredible hair and makeup and costuming going on in The Creator, but in Godzilla Minus One, right, they built that kind of post-World War II Japan set. Like, they really put that effort in there. That's not green or blue screen. Those aren't dots on actors' faces. They really like kind of rough them up and make them, feel like they're living in that post-war Japan. And so I think because of that, the money that they're able to then spend on visual effects, which cost a lot more than hair and makeup historically and costuming, it means that they are able to kind of use that money to really, make Godzilla look just terrifying, just huge and terrifying. So yeah.
Probably the best he's ever looked too.
Yeah, seriously. And I hope he accepts the award.
I would love that. All right, let's move on to Best Production Design. We've got Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. So Todd, what's your opinions on this category?
My opinion is I'm going Barbenheimer, and I'm doing that in prediction and then pick. I think Barbie is going to win it. I think this is a confluence of, if you recall, I did not pick Barbie for costumes or hair and makeup. I think this is a confluence of everything, of all the costumes, of all the hair and makeup, of all of the houses, of the world that they create, and then all of the miniature worlds as they transition between the real world and Barbie Land. I think production design is it should be a runaway for Barbie. But I would go Oppenheimer because I know this probably isn't number 2 on most people's ballots, but there is so much production design, and I don't know how to say this other than like he set off the bomb, like he built a non-nuclear equivalent of the bomb and blew it up. So that's production design, if nothing else, and it was incredible to watch. Every screen I've watched it on, I've watched it at home, I watched it in a regular theater, and I saw it on 70 millimeter IMAX, and every screen it's like, how did this person do that? So I would just give it to Oppenheimer, like on my personal ballot, knowing that there's no chance it would win.
Yeah, that's fair. I am with you that I think Barbie is going to be the winner here. I talked about a bit in the costumes as far as the faithful recreation of classic Barbie outfits and the faithful recreation of classic Barbie dream houses and, the cars and all that sort of stuff in Barbie Land just was so cool to sort of see come to life. I didn't own Barbies growing up, but like I had 2 female cousins around the same age as me, and they obviously had played with Barbies. And so seeing, I don't think they had the same ones, but seeing similar things brought to life and just how cool that looked, it was a really big deal, I think, for a lot of people. And, obviously, the story about running out of a certain shade of pink paint in the world and all that sort of stuff is, not going to be forgotten about. But yeah, I'll give a shout out also to both Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer, who make 2 towns. They both built towns for their movies, and they both look spectacular. And that is no small feat to do, especially in today's day and age where everything is shot in studios and trying to do as much CGI to fill in the background as you can. But both of those films actually did build their set, and that really does stand out and should be awarded thusly.
Yeah, this is a big year for hey, pay set decorators. Like, what are we doing? The movies this year, the biggest movies in the world, pretty clearly show that. The biggest films in the world really show that. So Do it again. Please do it again next year.
It's like you watch movies from, the 30s, 40s, 50s, and you just are in awe of the expanse. Obviously, they're paying people next to nothing and working them to the bone to sort of make these things. But like you look at them and you're just so impressed, and they hold up so well today. And then everything from like the last 15, 20 years, ever since they figured out, you can just CGI an entire crowd. You don't really need to, build everything. We can just fill it in later. Movies have kind of looked like crap. And then I love this trend of, no, actually do the work, because it really does make a difference when you're watching it.
Yeah, it's also just like way more fun when you're kind of talking about it or rewatching it later to be like, Harrison Ford ran through the actual St. Patrick's Day parade in The Fugitive. They did not just CGI a whole bunch of people onto a street. Like, they just were like, we're going to film this day. And he just runs through a crowd of people. And there's people pointing at him being like, yo, that's Harrison Ford. But in the movie, it makes it look like, hey, there's the dude wanted for murdering his wife. But it's like, that's great. If they did that now, that would not be the case. I mean, we had a movie this year of Harrison Ford running through streets. And
it looked awful.
It was terrible. So
yeah,
production design and visual effects. just give it actual effort. Pay the experts in their field to do what they're good at.
Yeah, and like you look at movies like Oppenheimer and Barbie, people will show up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Dune 2 is coming out. As this podcast is coming out, Dune 2 is now out. People are going to this. It is a huge deal. And Denis actually shot it on locations.
Yeah, he literally went to Arrakis. I think that's a whole separate issue on the Dune 2 front. I think the Oscars have like made a mistake. They pushed it so far back now that it's going to be competing with Dune 2, and Dune 2 is just going to be the more important like movie event of early March. But yeah, absolutely. Like Dune 2 is going to gross $1 billion, and it's going to 100% make back whatever it cost them to go film in the middle of the desert. And it's going to, and that's going to be for its benefit.
Yeah. All right, we're nearing the end here, so let's go to best film editing. We've got Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. For me, I'm going with Oppenheimer for editing. The things that I sort of consider the most are two different aspects. One is tension, and two is, are you sort of, not necessarily does it have to be in a non-linear timeline, which is obviously Nolan's thing, but are you able to sort of weave together a story in a unique and creative way that is still extremely coherent, and you always know when you are, where you are, and what is happening? And sort of Oppenheimer marries those two together as far as both tension and uniqueness of editing together, and is the best of that. And so is both my want to win and should win. What about you, Todd?
Well, I asked my 9-year-old son about this, and as always, I let him pick film editing. No, he advised me to also pick Oppenheimer, so I'm picking Oppenheimer. But I found myself, maybe for the same reasons as I was just going down my ballot, for the same reasons I kind of started to be like, yeah, I'll give it to Godzilla -1, or I'll give production design to Oppenheimer. I went with Killers of the Flower Moon here for pretty much the same reasons as I would go with Oppenheimer, except for Thelma Schoonmaker's not doing anything crazy here. Like there are no time jumps. This is just a Scorsese film. It's not a Nolan film. They're telling the story chronologically, and it is a 3.5-hour film, which means it's definitely not going to win Best Editing, because Best Editing almost always goes to the shorter film. Oppenheimer will still actually be the exception. But this should be, and probably if you gave Martin just unlimited control of like a 6-7 hour film, this would be like Showa with Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone. But it's not. I think it flows really well. I think by the time Jesse Plemons shows up on screen, it's like, oh, there's still some juice in this thing. And I think that is all the credit of editing. So I would give it to Killers of the Flower Moon for that alone. But I have zero doubt it's going to Oppenheimer.
Yeah. Well, your 9-year-old son, Taylor Beaumont, has some great picks, so I'm glad you let him fill out your ballot.
That's right. Shout out Taylor.
All right, so now we're down to the home stretch. We've got 2 categories left here, and the first one is Best Director, and we've got Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, and Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. This is a really stacked category as well. I think the Oscars did a pretty great job this year of picking, for the most part, the right movies and the right nominees. So I'm really happy about that. So what are your thoughts on this category?
I didn't even. I knew the nominees kind of off the top of my head. I didn't even have to run back through them in my head, and I didn't look over at the tab where I had the nominees also pulled up for this because I just wrote Christopher Nolan for prediction and for my pick. It's I think you said it on your nomination podcast that if there was ever a category that should also expand to 10 nominees, it should be director. I 100% agree, right? We're missing a ton of amazing directors from this year. We're missing Celine Song. We're missing Greta Gerwig. We're missing Todd Haynes, right? And there isn't a single person in these 5, though, I would take out to replace them. So, yeah, this is an abundance of riches type thing. And that's not to say that even that Nolan outdirects, quote unquote, like Glazer or Trier, but this is a win for Memento. This is a win for The Dark Knight. This is a win for this is a win for his career, as well as Oppenheimer just being an astounding monument of cinema. So yeah, it's Nolan.
Yeah. I'm in agreement. Yeah, this is very much his, he's overdue Oscar, but it's also very much this is a very worthy winner for his overdue Oscar to come into place, where it sort of feels like his momentum and crescendo has built up to the exact right moment for the exact right year for the exact right movie, and that's why he's going to win this category.
Yeah, can you imagine living in a world where he doesn't win for this, and we like have a Nolan film in 4 years, and we're like, what are we doing? Like, he didn't win for Dunkirk. He didn't win for Oppenheimer. He hasn't won for anything. Like, it would be superfluous. It already is, but it would be just a huge travesty if he didn't already have one after Oppenheimer.
All that said, and I want him to win. I do. But I'm going to have to go with Jonathan Glazer just because for the best director category, it's so hard to like separate what's the difference between best picture and best director. It's very hard to separate that, especially so often they go hand in hand. That said, I think Jonathan Glazer, the uniqueness, the boldness, the audacity to shoot a Holocaust movie on site at Auschwitz. Like, that's literally what he did. Those buildings behind the wall in the zone of interest is the real life Auschwitz. Mm-hmm. That is the real place. The audacity to do that is mind blowing. And the fact that this movie very easily could have been a complete disaster. And he absolutely nails it to the point where it's hilarious. Where like you scroll through Letterboxd reviews, and most of them are just absolutely praising and highlighting all the great things it does, and the performances, and the sound, and the unique way that he shot the movie. And then you get the people that like just don't get it, and you read it, and you're just like, I don't know how you could be so wrong about this movie. And like it'll get shared on Twitter, and just like everyone just piling on, being like, how can someone be this media illiterate and not realize what Glazer is doing here? And the absolute courage he took to do this movie is why I think he should win, even though I am 100% fine with Nolan winning, and I will be so happy. I will be his loudest supporter there, standing up, cheering for him when Nolan wins.
Yeah, it's going to be really fantastic when he wins. But I agree. The zone of interest has like the closest to like, no, you have it. Like you're all the way there. You just took away the wrong thing from it of recent films where people are like, 1 star, this film is disgusting. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like what? That's the point. Like you're there. You've done all the legwork. How did you get to 1 star?
Yeah.
Like no one's like, this is a happy-go-lucky film. It is disgusting. That is why you're watching it. But I mean, I completely agree. In any other year, or if Nolan had one for, I don't know, Dunkirk, if he had one for The Prestige, if he had one for literally anything else, even if it was his worst movie, even if they were like, we're giving the COVID Oscar to Nolan for Tenet, I think this would be Glazer, but he doesn't have one. And so this is like, that makes it a lock in my mind.
Yeah, you're right. All right, and now we're here at the very end for Best Picture, and we've got American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, in the Zone of Interest. So how is Maestro winning this category?
Yeah, I was just about to say, on the count of three, are we saying Maestro? Yeah, no, that would be the all-time. They even if they La La landed it for just like 2 minutes, if we thought Maestro won this category, it would be the funniest thing to ever happen. Do you want to start though?
Yeah, sure. Very much similar to Best Director. It is so difficult. The Zone of Interest is my favorite movie in this category, but Oppenheimer is a very, very close number 2 for me. So I'm gonna say just because it's not gonna happen. My want is The Zone of Interest. I just talked about for director. I talked about it in international. I talked about it in sound. We talked about it in screenplay. All the reasons why I adore this movie. I would be very, very happy if Oppenheimer, that was my number 2 for want, is the winner, which I 100% believe it is going to be the winner. It's pretty simple. I don't know how much more we can say about Oppenheimer that we haven't already said.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything crazy here, lest I already am going to lose all of my Monopoly money on my Poor Things bets. Yeah, I'm going Oppenheimer as my prediction for Best Picture. And it's not as close on my ballot as it is on yours. There are about 4 films I like more than it. If I had to do a ballot, it would probably rank number 5 for me, behind, in no particular order except for number 1, behind The Zone of Interest, Poor Things, Barbie even. I think I like Barbie more, but I don't think it's a better movie. And Past Lives would be my winner. Past Lives was my favorite film of the year. I don't have anything to add that Matthew Simpson didn't say a couple of weeks ago when these nominees were announced. It's my favorite of them. I think it's the most well crafted of them. It's small, it's sentimental, it is incredibly profound, and it has about as much a shot as Maestro at winning the award. But yeah, Oppenheimer. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. So yeah, there you have it. We other than the shorts, which you obviously didn't make any predictions on there, we only differed on 2 categories, I believe. No, 3 categories.
3, yeah.
The costumes, hair and makeup, and then visual effects. We are in complete agreement across the board. So this is probably the tightest predictions episode I've ever done with someone.
This will be really interesting if you get costumes right and I get hair and makeup right, and we're tied 1-1, and it just comes down to visual effects, and you actually are sitting there being like, the creator has to win. The creator doesn't win an Academy Award. But yeah, the Oscars are so late. It's almost the middle of March when the awards are going to happen. There's a lot of time for these to kind of calcify. So I'm not surprised that we have so many in agreement.
Yeah, so I guess the one thing I want to say is are we in agreement because you and I have sort of similar tastes and similar thoughts? We saw a lot of these movies together during VIFF, and we talked about them right away after we watched them. Or is it that due to all of the precursors and so many movies seeming like favorites in their categories that it's just going to be an easier year to predict the winners?
I think, since COVID, and they've really pushed it back into March, and it used to be closer to the Super Bowl in the middle of February. I think the added time is really the difference, because if we had done this a month ago, if the voting had been through January, and on February 2nd we were sitting here talking, we would have picked The Holdovers for a lot more of these. The Holdovers would have been at least within striking distance of Best Picture. I think we would have been Paul Giamatti might pull off the upset. There's just, but I don't know, the extra 4 or 5 weeks really were The Holdovers is a Christmas movie in this particular case, and it's March. We're going to be 70 something days into the year when we do a wrap up podcast about the Oscars, and that's well after the holdovers had kind of crested. And so I think the added time, as well as definitely like our exceptional movie taste being completely aligned, is a part of it, is a huge part of it. And I think the added time has helped maybe the best of the best parse out. Right, it's not even necessarily a bad thing. I think we've seen more juice kind of come for Anatomy of a Fall and for Poor Things, for the Zone of Interest, and then Oppenheimer is really locked in. But I think for the kind of fun of like upsets and like what is really happening in that moment, the longer road is it makes it longer, and it makes it easier to have our predictions aligned, if not like 100% kind of correct. I don't think either of us will go 100%, but I don't think either of us are going to have failing grades either when come March 10th. So,
and I think we sort of highlighted which movies might, or which categories might be a little bit closer. We talked extensively about something like animated feature is probably going to maybe be one of the more toss-up categories. Best actress is going to be one that's going to be a little bit more of a toss-up. We differed ever so slightly on the three categories, but we sort of see how both of our picks could be the winner in either way. So I think that, there's still going to be some toss-ups, and I think there's going to be maybe some minor surprises, but like we know it's going to be, it's like, well, it's going to be this one or this one. It's not going to be the surprise fifth nominee of it.
Right. It's a toss-up in that it's a coin tossing into the air, right? It's going to be heads or it's going to be tails. It's not like we're tossing a Rubik's Cube into the air and figuring out which color it's going to land on. I guess that would be 6 colors. But, the point stands. It's like we differed on 3 categories, and we differed between the top 2 picks, right? It would be like, is it going to be Barbie or is it going to be Poor Things? Is it going to be The Creator or is it going to be Godzilla -1? It's not like, could any of these, I don't know, even top 4 nominees be like, even if it's like some random 5th one, right? Like El Conde probably has no shot at cinematography, but could any of the other 4 win? It's like, no, they couldn't. Not this year, at least. So yeah, I don't know. With enough time, everything just gets whittled down to pretty much 1, but at most 2, it feels like. And so if they cut just a couple weeks out of the schedule, those categories that might be 1-horse races or seem like it's just like a 1 clear favorite become, I don't know, 2-horse races. And the ones that are 2 might become 3 or 4, and there becomes a real sense of excitement over what's going to happen at the ceremony. But who knows? I mean, it could be a Maestro sweep. What are we talking about?
Selfishly, I would love it if they don't condense the Oscar season, just because I still have 2 movies to go with 1 week left, and I'm going to use that 1 week to my advantage. But I totally understand with what you're saying. The fact that like the BAFTAs used to be after the Oscars, and they realized that no one gives a shit after the Oscars about awards anymore. So you got to do it before. And so that's why they moved it up to before the Oscars, like about a month before the Oscars, because that's the only way that anyone will actually care, because now people watch it to see the winners and see how that's going to affect their Oscar predictions.
Yeah, it's fascinating how quickly people move on once the Oscars are done. Or in some cases, like they're still trying to find the sweet spot, because we already have people that are like, let's talk about Dune 2's chances at the 2025 Oscars. And I'm like, let's not talk about that. And let's not talk about that for 6 more months at least. And can we finish this year's Oscars first? But on March 11th, everyone's going to be doing their wrap-up stuff. They're going to be publishing. And then by March 12th, March 13th, after I guess people have consumed that, it's gonna be over. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is you're not okay with me starting my campaign of Javier Bardem and Rebecca Ferguson for supporting actor and actress.
No, I mean, you can do that. That's fine, because that doesn't overlap with my Jason Statham for Best Actor for The Beekeeper. But yeah, I'm going to be doing the kind of silent campaigning. Just a lot of Beekeeper propaganda for about the next 6 months before I start vocally going on podcasts and being like, let's talk Oscars 2025. When is Jason getting his due?
Well, Todd, I want to thank you for appearing on the show for the very last time. It's been a real treat. In all seriousness, no, let's wrap up here. I think we covered everything. Todd, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. That was a really fun conversation because you basically just echoed all my points and really validated me. So I appreciate that. Rachel doesn't validate me enough, frankly.
No, yeah, I'm your inner Eid, so.
Well, where can people find you? Are you working on anything that you want to promote? What you got going on in your life there, Todd?
We can find Oscar coverage obviously here on this podcast. I'm going to try to do some Oscar coverage post ceremony on For Real, and yeah, just find me on social media at Todd_complex. I think there's an underscore in there. Been a minute. Yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. This has been a That Shelf podcast. Visit thatshelf.com for more great film discourse. Follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at ContraZoomPod. Who do you think had the better predictions? Send an email to ContraZoomPod@gmail.com. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. And if you really like the show, consider tipping us on coffee. Thanks for checking us out.